Well, good evening, brothers and sisters. It's wonderful to meet on you this Sabbath just before first fruits. And we're gonna go over first fruits. We're gonna go over some of the things we're gonna go over the teaching of the law concerning first fruits, how it's determined, how its date is determined, what one does at first fruits, and the prophetic significance of it. Um, I At this point, my friend Stephen had something that he's has something that he has brought out from the scriptures that he would like to share with us that I think is fairly significant and that we can actually all learn from. So, without further ado, I'm going to turn the time over to him so that he can talk to us, bring out some solid truth.
Okay, so last week we did a discussion about Passover with Josh leading, and something I had not figured out at the point was why nor sodden with water. Okay, because why even bring that out if you're saying roast it, right?
Mhm.
And I didn't have the answer at the time. It's something I've wondered for a while, actually. But as Zach gave our closing benediction last time, I did receive an answer, flood. Okay. Now, maybe before we get into that word, Ben, are you willing to go to the 1828 dictionary for sodden so that way it's clear what it is?
Okay, I'm
Or do you want me to?
okay. That we're gonna have to. You're gonna Let me go
Stop
ahead and pull
sharing. I'll
this
do it.
up. Uh, no, I mean I've got it. I can do it.
Okay.
So
I
let's see.
pause.
1828.
Okay, so Ben got us the 1828 dictionary up for sodden, and it's pretty simple. Boiled. But I just want to make
Okay.
sure that there's no questions about that, right?
Yep. No question in my mind. That's for sure.
Yeah. All right, so let's go back to the scripture app.
There we go.
Okay. So eat it not of it raw, meaning not cooked, right? You got to cook it.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked about that in the recording. I'll put a link to it. And
Yep.
nor sodden or boiled with water, but roasted with fire. Okay. So, um, the flood. Let's talk about what that is. So there's two floods. There's a flood of water, which would go with the boiling in the water, but
Mm-hmm.
also one of fire, which also goes with boiling because of the heat.
Mm-hmm.
This sodden is a mixture of Noah's flood and the flood of fire and brimstone. And within scriptures, um, the the water flood and the fire flood are a bit interchangeable with each other. One example I know off the top of my head is with Samson. With so Samson's three women's do represent the three 2000 periods. The first period, at the end of it, was foxes with fire, a flood
Mm-hmm.
of fire, where it goes along with the flood of Noah. Okay, but
Mm-hmm.
there's other places where there's kind of interchangeably. Okay, but here it is both together, water and fire with the boiling. Okay, that is a mixing
Mm-hmm.
of the two. Um, Now let's look at this image, but roasted with fire. So roasting is where you have the lamb above the
Mm-hmm.
okay. Now this also gets into some issues with Paul, where are you under the law or are
Mm-hmm.
you above the law? Under the law is meaning that you're receiving curses from the law that you broke because you have not repented and come under Yeshua's covering yet. Being And I don't like this phrase, but I'm just going to say it because it's the opposite of above the law. Um, It's where you're living it and you're getting the blessings from it. Okay. Now, don't read into that phrase too much because I know that means something else in English. Okay. Don't read into
Yeah,
it too much.
yeah.
Um,
Don't think of yourself as a kingpin.
right. Now, another one just popped in my head. Um, with the baker and cupbearer that went to Joseph of Egypt when he was down in the pit. They both
Mhm.
had dreams. The dream of the baker, he was under the law, under the crows, he was getting a curse.
Yep.
Where the cupbearer was bearing the cup of the wine of joy to the king. He got
Well,
blessing.
he was lifted up.
He was
And
lifted up.
right. Mm-hmm.
Where the baker got curses and was pushed down.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So we just need to keep in mind the law, Torah, is a two-edged sword. Okay. So
Yes. Those who don't keep it um, are going to be in the fire.
correct, as in
Those who do keep it, are baptized with the fire and the Holy Ghost.
correct. To go along with this, soddening in the water is being in the flood.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Being roasted, to roast the lamb means it's not in the fire, but it is above the fire.
Right.
A bit like the, we'll say, rapture.
Mm-hmm.
As the fire on earth is happening, if you're with the lamb, you will be above it. Just as it's, Paul will use the phrase as in being blessed by the law because you're keeping it. Instead of
Right.
under the law, where you're getting the curses and
Yep.
punishments of it. Okay.
Yeah.
And so this thing about Noah sodden with the water does go along with these two floods. Now, in addition, when we go look at the fifth day of the creation prophecy, there was the big fish
Oh
or
yeah.
beast. I mean, different translations put it a little different, right?
Right.
That is a symbol of Satan and going deep into the water, as in deep into the occult and bad ways. And part of the reason it's because of that is because the further you go into water, this big mass of water, the less air, Torah, you will get.
Mm-hmm.
And so I know that's not a literal thing. This is a symbolic thing with symbolism within the scriptures, but I do see that here also because if you're in the deep water, even in English, in the deep water, that is an idiom for being in trouble, right?
Yep. Yep.
There's truth to that in the scriptures.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of these idioms that we take for granted actually do have some nuggets of truth to them if we take the time to think about them. But
I have a quick question, Stephen, and this
sure.
goes along with the lesson with the lesson you are teaching. Would the correct word be upheld?
Yeah, upheld would be a better word. Thank you, John.
Yeah.
I that word escaped me, but upheld would be a better word than uplifted. But it's to me, it's kind of the same thing, but it is
Or
another
above, like
above.
upheld is better than above the law.
Yeah. Upheld
Nobody-
because it's holding you up.
Upheld. You are upheld
The
by
law
the
is
law.
upholding you.
Yeah. Now,
Mhm.
along those lines, is it D&C 84 where it talks about, and we don't have to go look at it, but about how the law is part of the thing that will save you, as in Mosiah 13, or it's
Yeah, it's in Doctrine and Covenants section. It's in Doctrine and Covenants section 88, verse
88.
34.
Okay.
I'll go ahead and bring that.
Okay,
I'll go
we
ahead.
can go look at it. Sure, that's fine.
Doctrine and Covenants 88. We're going to be looking at some other verses in Doctrine and Covenants section 88 as well later on tonight. But here, this is important because this really goes well in line with what with what Stephen's bringing forward. And so you have 88 verses 34 and 35. Again, verily I say unto you, that which is governed by law is also preserved by law and perfected and sanctified by the same. Now, this is interesting because the Passover lamb was meant to be roasted by fire on a spit, which was an iron rod thrust through the lamb.
Yes, correct. Which that has
Wow.
symbolism in itself.
Wow.
That is the upholding. That is the thing that upholds. It is the upholding hand.
You mean like the law right there that we see through from Yahweh through Joseph Smith?
Uh-huh.
But that which breaketh the law and abideth not by law, that which does not stay on the iron rod, but seeketh to become a law unto itself, and willeth to abide in sin, and altogether abideth in sin, cannot be sanctified by law, neither by mercy, justice, nor judgment. Therefore they must remain filthy still, and will end up in the fire.
Correct. So, anyways, so go back to Exodus 12. The idea is here, you're either going to be with the lamb or you're going to be with the people in the floods.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You get to
Now,
choose.
something that I really like here is the parts that are mentioned here, especially when you realize that pertinence, no, it does not mean pestilence.
No.
His head with his legs, his head, the logos, the knowledge with his legs.
Yeshua. Yeshua is the head, right?
Yeshua is the head, with his legs, the walk, and with the pertinence, the heart and the lungs.
Yep. Which is where Torah needs to be, right?
Yep. Which is where it needs to be, continuously on our hearts and in the Hebrew mindset, the heart is the home of all deep and meaningful thought. The heart is, not the mind.
Yep. Yep.
And with the pertinence thereof, the heart and the lungs. The lungs are the breath of life. Yahweh breathed into Adam's nostrils the breath of life, and he became a living soul.
Yes. So that's my thought there. It has some teaching and some prophecy with it. And it is interesting with the prophecy part, what was going on that night? The angel of death. The angel, the reason for the rapture is to save the more diligent believers from the angel of death.
Of destruction, of death. Yes.
Yeah. He's named in the fourth seal, it's death, which is be the mighty and strong one. But this is another instance how the mighty and strong one does point to the Messiah.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. I like that. That's pretty cool.
Thank you for giving me a little time today, Ben.
Yeah, not a problem. I really appreciate these things that you share with us, especially seeing as my entire training, everything in my life has been all about not the creation and bringing forth of the text, but rather the bringing out the spirit of the text and bringing out the from the text that is given to me, I am able to find good things, but I do not generate texts. And Stephen, as you see here, he generated an understanding of why why it is not sodden at all with water. Now, from that,
I will tell you, that's not all me. Yahweh gave me a word. Because of my background, though, I knew what was meant with the word, and I could expound it with everything else that was there. Right?
Now that I see that verse that way, now I can begin to look and to peel back the onion and peel back things layer by layer and expand and look into the depth and plumb the depths of that understanding. And so I really appreciate when Stephen brings these new understandings forward.
Well, I like sharing. So, I mean, I do appreciate all the help that you guys give me. So,
Mhm.
anyways. But thank you for letting me
So,
take a little time.
yeah, not a problem. So we are on the week before, we are on the Sabbath. Tomorrow is first fruits, uh, which is a Sabbath in and of itself. We're not supposed to be working tomorrow. So, and we're going to go over that here. Starting, now, this is the commandment concerning first fruits in Leviticus chapter 23, verses 9 through 14. Do I have a volunteer to read that?
Sure, I'll read.
Oh, go ahead, Josh. Go ahead.
Yeah. So Leviticus 23, verses 9 through 14.
Yeah.
And Yahweh spoke unto Moshe, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them, When ye be come into the land which I give unto you, and shall reap the harvest thereof, then ye shall bring a sheaf of the firstfruits of your harvest unto the priest. And he shall wave the sheaf before Yahweh to be accepted for you. On the morrow after the Sabbath, the priest shall wave it. And ye shall offer that day when ye wave the sheaf an he lamb without blemish of the first year for a burnt offering unto the Lord. And the meat offering thereof shall be 2/10 deals of fine flour mingled with oil, an offering made by fire unto the Lord for a sweet savor. And the drink offering thereof shall be of wine, the fourth part of an hin. And ye shall eat neither bread, nor parched corn, nor green ears, until the selfsame day that ye have brought an offering unto your Elohim. It shall be a statute forever throughout your forever.
There's that F word.
Yeah, there's that F word again.
Yeah.
Throughout your generations in all your dwellings.
Okay. And verse 15, I just realized that verse 15 is kind of important too. So I'll just read that real quick. And ye shall count unto you from the morrow after the Sabbath. This tells us when first fruits is the morrow after the first Sabbath of
Passover.
the Feast of Unleavened Bread.
Thank you.
Yes.
Unleavened bread. Right.
In which, to be specific, that when we go look at some of the verses about Passover, the Passover is on the 14th. The next day is the Sabbath, the 15th, which makes first fruits the 16th, which also goes along with the lunar Sabbath.
Right. I like that note that Ben has on
which
there.
is kind of what I was going to next. In Genesis chapter 1, verses 14 through 18. This is about Yahweh creating the lights of the heavens and what it was they were to govern.
Oh, yeah. Okay. All right.
And Stephen, do you want to read that for me?
Yeah. So Genesis 1, 14 through 18. And Elohim said, Let there be lights in the firmament of heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be signs and for Moedim and for days and for years. Yes, I said.
Stephen here did the replacement of the Hebrew word for what is for the confusing word that's in here, and Moedim means appointed times. If it was just Moed, it would be one appointed time. Moedim, all the appointed times.
Yeah, I might have said the wrong.
No, you said the right thing. You said the right thing. I was just adding a little more information.
Sometimes I get a little mixed up, but I have the right idea.
Yeah.
You did.
Sometimes I have a hard time with English. So.
You were on the right path.
Okay. But yes, it's not like the four seasons as we generally think about. It's the Moed, or as in the high holidays, and which would also all Sabbaths. In the scriptures it says Sabbaths because there's three different types. I'll just this unless Ben wants to get into it. The weekly Sabbath, the yearly Sabbath and the moonly Sabbath. Anyways, do you want me?
But that's not the purpose of this teaching, and I think that's sufficient on that right now.
All right.
Let it be for signs and for moedim and for days and years. So you did actually say the right word because it's season, it's the multiple. It's the plural, therefore moedim was the correct word.
Now I will say this: we're told right here how to determine the year. The sun.
Yeah. It has nothing to do with a barley harvest.
No, it has nothing to do with it. In fact, guess what? They didn't do it for 40 years.
And that's true.
In Exodus, it was burned. All the barley was burned, so they didn't have it to determine the year. But anyways.
Right.
I'll go on because I could sidetrack. But anyways, I already did. But let them for the lights and the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth. And it was so. And Elohim made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the
sun.
The sun, and the lesser moon light to rule the night. And now this is a side mark. He also, I added a word there, but made the stars. Oh, it's at the end. So
He made the stars also.
He made the stars also. As in
but that's a side point. We don't measure the year. We do not go by the sidereal year.
No. So on that point, the solar year is shorter than the year by the stars.
Right.
And so it makes the stars get out of alignment from the solar year, which actually determines the normal 4 seasons when the harvest happens, that the high holidays are attached to in the scriptures also. So it is the sun and the moon that determines it. But there is the issue of the 13th moon at times that the additional scriptures help us to know when it's the right planting cycle.
Yeah.
Without using the other word to make it more confusing. To know when everything should be in sync. Because there are various interpretations of how to determine the 13th moon. And I'll leave it at that unless Ben wants to get more.
No, that's good. That's fine. That's good to leave it at that. Okay. God set them in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth.
Yes.
And to rule over day and over the night, and to divide the light from the darkness. And Elohim saw that it was good. Now, interestingly enough, I'm going to go ahead and skip this Leviticus chapter. Read the earlier section in Leviticus first. That's about the meat offerings, because as we read in the first section, a meat offering is to be given. A meat offering thereof shall be 2/10 steels of fine flour mingled with oil, an offering made unto Yeshua for a sweet savor, and the drink offering thereof shall be of wine, the fourth part of an hin. Okay.
No, I'm going to interrupt. I don't like that translation, meat offering, because that makes me think of lamb or cow.
Right.
A better translation is bread offering. If you don't believe me, just read the context, because it goes into flour.
Right. Yeah.
And oil and flour, and you mix it, and it makes a loaf, or it makes a bread, and you burn it. Yes.
Yeah, I agree that it is definitely a bread offering. But let's humor the King James, our King James apostate scriptures for just a moment while they go on and on about a meat offering.
You mean King James is not the only authorized version, and you mean those scholars maybe weren't always inspired?
No.
I don't think that there is any man alive who can honestly claim to always be inspired.
Oh, I know I'm not. I'll own that. I'm not always.
Yeah, yeah. Anyways,
Not all.
not always. Nope.
So when somebody puts something on men that is not in their nature, we have a problem.
Yeah, I will just say this. I believe, and I'm going to borrow a quote from Joseph Smith because I actually believe it. I believe it came from the pen of the author. There's been some
Yeah.
issues. Mhm.
Yeah, and so the key is to always try to get back to get us back as much as you can to what came from that pen, and let that teach you.
Yes. Yeah. I will
So
tell you, most of the time I focus on various English translations, but there are times when I have noticed potential issues, I will then dig into it, right? So,
right. So Zach, because there's a because there's a bread offering at the associated um, with first fruits. Zach, if you would not mind reading for us Leviticus chapter 2, verses 7 through 11, which goes over what is supposed to go into what exactly the exact procedure for offering a bread offering.
Okay. And if thy oblation be a meat offering, like what's the
A
word you
bread
said?
offering.
A bread
Bread
offering, maybe. Yeah.
bread offering that is made of these things unto Yahweh. And when it is presented unto the priest, he shall bring it unto the altar.
Wait, what are you reading?
skip
Oh
some.
wait, oh crap. I
7, starting in verse.
yeah, sorry, I made a mistake.
You're good.
No, you're fine.
No worries, no worries, no worries. I was just a little confused. That's all. No big deal.
I've highlighted it for you.
Oh, thanks. 7. And if thy oblation be a meat offering, and is that supposed to be baked or
Yeah, it's basically bacon baked. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
baking into the frying pan, shall be made of fine flour with oil.
Hmm.
If, and if thou and thou shalt bring the bread offering that is made of these things unto Yahweh, and when it is presented unto the priest, he shall bring it unto the altar. And the priest shall take from the bread offering a memorial thereof, and shall burn it upon the altar. And it is an offering made by fire of a sweet savor unto the Lord, unto Yahweh. And that which is left of the bread offering shall be Aaron's and his sons. And it is a thing most holy of the offerings of Yahweh made by fire. No bread offering which ye shall bring unto Yahweh shall be made with leaven, for ye shall burn no leaven, nor any honey, and any offering of Yahweh made by fire.
Okay.
Can I interject before we go a little bit more?
Yeah.
So, verse 10. It is a thing most holy, the offerings of Yahweh made by fire. Now, I will say the reason that is because this is symbolic of Yeshua being the first offering.
Yep.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And he is the bread of life.
Yes.
And
And
this is
he is
why the bread offering this is why the bread offering is in fact the most holy of the offerings.
especially this one on first fruits because that's representative of Yeshua being the first fruit going up to heaven.
Yeah. So this is no meat offering, no bread offering brought unto Yahweh in his house shall be made with leaven. So all bread offerings are unleavened.
Correct.
For you shall burn no leaven, nor any honey in any offering of Yahweh made by fire. So now we come to a kind of a it se it seems here in verse 12 like he's kind of contradicting himself a little. But we'll see about ways that we'll see about how we resolve these apparent contradictions when they come up. So Matt, you want to read verses 12 through 16?
Yeah, sure. As for the oblation of the first fruits, ye shall offer them unto Yahweh, but they shall not be burnt on the altar for a sweet savor. And every oblation of thy meat offering shalt thou season with salt. Neither shalt thou suffer the salt of the covenant of thy Elohim to be lacking from thy meat offering. With all thine offerings thou shalt offer salt.
So what this seems to me to indicate is that unleavened bread should be made with salt.
Correct. And I do think that's nice to know, because I have had questions on that some of myself. So this is a good clarification right there. It's stated in black and white, literally.
With all thine offerings thou shalt
Yeah,
offer salt.
all we're supposed to offer at the tabernacle is unleavened bread, and all the offerings are supposed to be made with salt.
Yeah, that just, it's black and white, clear, and I hadn't checked the Leviticus 2 reference on this. So Ben's done some more research on it than I have, which I actually am very appreciative of, because that's cleared up a question that I've had myself. And John can testify to that, right? Because we've had. So.
We've
Had a
had
few conversations.
We've
about
had
it, huh?
quite a few conversations.
Yeah, that's
All righty. So moving forward here,
Okay, so
just with the verses really quick.
yep. And if thou offer a bread offering of the first fruits unto Yahweh, thou shalt offer for the bread offering of thy first fruits green ears of corn dried by the fire, even corn beaten out of full ears. Thou shalt put oil upon it and make popcorn. No, I'm joking. And lay frankincense thereon. It is a bread offering. And the priest shall burn the memorial of it, part of the beaten corn thereof, and part of the oil thereof, and with all the frankincense thereof. It is an offering made by fire unto Yahweh.
So is this saying that in the first fruits offering we don't burn the bread, but we burn what it is made of with oil and frankincense?
No.
So, and maybe I'm going to jump the gun, but some is to offer unto Yahweh to be burned, and some of it is to be eaten.
Yes.
Right. It just like it says in Leviticus 2, 7 through 11. But let's see how we look at this Leviticus chapter 2, verse 12, which seems to state that the oblation of first fruits shall not be burned upon the altar for a sweet savor. Let's take a look at that, see how we resolve that with the rest of the verses surrounding it.
Can I sidetrack us for just maybe one sentence?
Yeah.
The green ears of barley. That is not a particular ripening stage. That is when they're young.
Well, that's green ears. It says, it doesn't say barley, Stephen. It says corn.
Corn is a generic word.
Corn's a generic word in the King James translation.
In the King James translation,
it's barley. It's barley.
It can be any grain. It can be any grain.
Correct. Corn itself can be, but in this context, it is barley. Okay. But it doesn't say it being ripe. This is green.
Right.
No, it's green. Right.
The reason I'm bringing it up is because of calendar controversies. That's all. It doesn't say what phase the barley needs to be in, and I'll leave it at that.
Got it. Okay.
So let's take a look. If you'll pause real quick so that we don't have too much dead time. Okay, so when we have an apparent contradiction, the first thing that you do is you look at the context around the verse, and we've done that as we've read the 4 verses in front, the 5 verses in front of it, and the 4 verses after. We've seen the context around the verse, and so we see that that verse, if you were to interpret it as it is not as the idea of it not being offered, it stands kind of by itself, kind of as an island in the middle of everything, so that we can get a correct understand what this is actually saying. What we can do, a tool that's available to everybody practically who has
Free.
an internet connection.
Bible Hub.
What's that?
For free for everybody on Bible Hub.
Right. If you have the internet, you can get the Bible Hub, and here
If
you
you're
can
listening to this, you have the internet.
That's right. So you can get the Bible Hub, and you can actually check this back to the interlinear, and you can check various translations. See here in the King James, it makes a bold subject change in front of verse 12 as if that's something different. Here, if you take a look at verse 11 in the Berean Standard, no grain offering that you present unto the Lord may be unto Yahweh may be made with leaven, for you are not to burn any leaven or honey as an offering made by fire to Yahweh. Rather than a bold change, this is actually related to the verse before here. You may bring them to Yahweh as an offering of first fruits, but they are not to be offered on the altar as a pleasing aroma. So there, if you bring a leavened barley loaf, it's not to be offered on the altar, basically, is what I get from that. If it has leaven or honey in it, it is not to be put upon the altar, but is simply an offering to the priests. What do you think of that, Stephen?
I think that's a good possibility. Considering this is put on me just out of nowhere, I can see that as a good possibility. Um, because that would kind of get rid of that contradiction, right? Because the ones that are made to the offering by fire are the ones that don't have leaven or honey. But if you bring them with it, which the context would imply, then you're not to put it on the altar. Because the altar and the fire are synonymous here, correct?
Yeah, that is correct. The altar and the fire are synonymous. So there is no offer. You can bring an offering of you can bring the priests leavened bread, but they can't burn it.
Correct. And then this is where they get to eat it and keep it themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Okay.
I like that assessment, yes.
So this is the next step that you can do in resolving one of these conflicts is you can see it in a different translation and see if it makes more sense in the through line. And the next thing you can do is if that doesn't resolve the issue, then you can go to the interlinear. Bible Hub gives you an interlinear translation, which is not perfect, but it is pretty good.
Yeah, so sometimes their English translation is bad, but the one thing that's really good about the interlinear, it shows you how many words are tied to, or how many English words is tied to one Hebrew word, and it gives you very obvious links to go dig deeper yourself.
Right. And so here where the King James where the King James, just like this English interlinear translation has as for the offering, the Hebrew word here is korban, which means actually, okay, sorry, my computer is about slower than the 7 years itch, 10 years late. It's probably due to the operating system hogging so much memory. But here we go. See korban. Yeah. and Zuma takes a fair amount of memory itself.
Yeah.
So korban, all it means is offering. Where do they get as for thee?
They're filler words to try to make it make sense in English.
Right. So the only thing is the only word that's justified there is offering. So as you go through the offering of the first fruits, you shall offer.
Well, look, you just did it again. You added of the. That's the English filler words. Offering first fruit.
Offering first fruits.
Offer.
Let's.
It's going to be
offer them.
Without these filler
Yalpa.
words, it's really weird in English.
Now, this is actually a Hebrew filler. So, but on the altar not shall they be burned. So this is offering of first fruits, offer to Yahweh, them to Yahweh, but not on the altar for a sweet aroma, basically. Which basically points us back to the understanding that we received when we read in the Berean Standard Version, you may bring them to Yahweh as offerings of first fruits, those things which are leavened and have honey in them, but they are not to be offered on the altar.
Now, and I completely agree with that. Now, I think one thing to keep in mind, leaven deals with teachings. And that's something we're supposed to consume. And honey is symbolic of Torah, which we are to consume ourselves. So that's why they can't just be burnt. It's something that we're supposed to be taking. So, anyways.
Exactly.
We're not to get rid of Torah, despite what people may claim. It's even right there.
Right. You're not to burn it. You're not to burn it.
That was a good thing to bring out and a good exercise, Ben.
Okay. Now, in Numbers, it talks about that which is dedicated to that which is given to Aaron by ordinance and covenant forever. And among these things are the first fruit offerings. Let's see. Matt, do you want to read verses 8 through 10?
Yeah. And Yahweh spake unto Aaron, Behold, I also have given thee the charge of mine heave offerings, of all the hallowed things of the children of Israel, unto thee have I given them, by reason of the anointing, and to thy sons by an ordinance forever.
That's the F word there.
Yeah, so for those people who say that the offerings of the Levitical priesthood were done away in Yeshua, you have a problem
with that forever word. That's a tricky one to get around.
Not even all of the offerings of the Levitical priesthood were done away at Yeshua's death.
No.
There were some offerings that were done away, which were instituted as a punishment, ordained at Mount Sinai, and you can read about those in Numbers 28.
Yes, and I'll put a link to my Law of Moses that kind of goes over that issue very thoroughly. But Ben's right. It is a punishment. And as Ben likes to bring out on law words, when a punishment is in place, it is a law because you have to follow it.
Yes, when a sentence has been pronounced by a judge, it becomes law upon the person upon whom it has been pronounced.
Yeah.
So, and that is the way that these things that were ordained at specific times and places, i.e., the law of Abraham, as it were, which is circumcision,
Correct.
and the law of Moses,
Yeah, which is primarily the two daily lambs. There's more than that, but we'll just leave it at that.
Uh, so behold, I have given unto, okay, so this is, there you have it. There's the forever right there. This is,
Yeah.
he has given the charge of this unto Aaron and his sons forever. Okay, so sons here is not just literal sons. This is talking about those who follow in his footsteps, operating in his priesthood.
Yeah.
Yeah. In
Okay,
that, as
Matt.
part of that, just to help go along with that, Melchizedek priesthood can officiate in everything in the Aaronic, because Aaronic is an appendage of the Melchizedek. So.
So, okay, so Matt, going on to verse 9.
This shall be thine of the most holy things, reserved from the fire, every oblation of theirs, every meat, bread offering of theirs, and every sin offering of theirs, and every trespass offering of theirs, which they shall render unto me, shall be most holy for thee and for thy sons or
Now,
followers.
now, just something that's very interesting. I think it's really important that he talks about what's reserved for them is the meat offering, is the bread offering of theirs, the other people of Israel. The sin offering for their sins. If a Levite sins, his sin offering is not to be eaten.
Mhm.
And every trespass offering of theirs, which they shall render unto me, shall be most holy for thee and for thy sons. Okay.
I have a question, and this, well, I'll save that question for after. In the most holy place shalt thou eat it; every male shall eat it; it shall be holy unto thee.
So I do think the most holy place is not the best translation because it's talking about the holy place, not the holy.
Yeah.
So this is some nuances in the King James English going on, in my honest opinion.
This is a translator. This is kind of a translator error, not so much a. I don't think it's. I don't think that it's
I don't think
necessarily.
it's deliberate. I'm guessing they just didn't know any better. Um,
Yeah.
because for support for that, Aaron, or who the high priest is in the Aaronic priesthood, whoever that is, can only go into the Holy Holies once a year on Day of Atonement to do specific things, which is stated in the Day of Atonement ceremony. Um, he's not allowed to go in there and eat. So this is the holy place, not
So
the holy.
might I also proffer a suggestion? The reason why it's the most holy is because the offering is the most holy. And so, because wherever you eat, I guess what they're trying to say is if you eat that which is most holy, where you are is most holy, kind of. And that's just something I'm going to
I
throw
can
in.
see that as a possibility. Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. That can make some sense.
Yeah.
Okay. So what was your question about verse 9?
So it was, no, there was, never mind. I forgot. No, it was for
Okay.
later, like if I remembered later after the lesson, finish the lesson. We'll do it.
Okay. So Zach, if you could you read verses 11 through 14?
Of Numbers 18.
Numbers 18, verses 11 through 14.
Okay. And this is thine, the heave offering of their gift, with all the wave offerings of the children of Israel. I have given them unto thee, and to thy sons, and to thy daughters with thee, by a statute forever. Everyone that is clean in thy house shall eat of it.
Okay, so the symbology here, the heave offering being theirs and the wave offerings being theirs. The heave offering and the wave offerings are both ways of bringing the offering closer to Yahweh. Yeshua is the high priest, and all of these offerings are his. And so as a symbolic way of pointing to that, these offerings were gifted to the priest.
And part of the reason why these are holy is because the first fruits points back to Yeshua, who is holy.
Yep. Okay, and verse 12, Zach.
All the best of the oil, and all the best of the wine, and of the wheat, the first fruits of them which they shall offer unto Yahweh, which I have given thee. With them have I given thee.
Mhm.
And
So
whatsoever
what is it that they were to offer at first fruits? Is it the worst that they had? Is it
No,
the stuff that they could get away with?
it's the best of the first, just as Yeshua was the best.
Mhm.
And it wasn't a certain amount, or
Yep,
as in,
exactly.
okay, so let me clarify a little bit. It wasn't a tenth, okay, as in a tithing. There are specific amounts that are given for some of these things, not all of them, but the main focus is it's the first and the good part of the
Yeah.
first, okay?
Hmm.
As in to point to Yeshua. And so, depending on what you thought Yeshua was like, will probably determine on what you would give.
Hmm.
Because some
Yep.
people don't have the best opinion of him. So we'll just leave it at that. No, I'm being serious.
Yeah.
And even
Yeah.
if they think he's good, they have some misunderstandings, right? So, anyways.
Yeah. So okay, verse 13. Back.
and whatsoever is first ripe in the land which they shall bring unto Yahweh shall be thine. Everyone that is clean in thine house shall eat of it.
Okay, so here we have something, everyone that is clean of thine house shall eat of it. Up here it says only the males, and I do think that these sin offerings could only be eaten by the priests because they were the only ones there.
So
Uh,
one thing, I know this because I just did a post on this. If you go look at the Hebrew behind the male, it is actually
yeah,
remembering those who are keeping it because it is connected
yeah,
with 11 and 13. It's clean, and in this 8 through 19, it does mention daughters in two
yeah.
spots. I think 19's one, and I forget
Yes.
the other one, but it is twice. Um, so I think this is another occasion of a bad
Another
translation.
a bad translation for the men. Okay, yeah, that I'm perfect. I am totally perfect. I'm perfectly okay with that, seeing as I proofread that text that teaching that he released, and I believe that teaching, I believe that translation, I believe his retranslation of that to be correct.
Sure, sure. It's just always having, it's hard to remember everything on the fly, right? So that's fine.
Right. It is hard to remember everything on the fly. The main thing is, I mean, yeah, and the main thing about that, yeah. So that was the main thing about that is just kind of didn't think about it at that particular time. But I do agree with the retranslation with retranslating that to all that are clean in the house.
Oh yeah, well, yes, it is ultimately clean, but it is remembering, as in remembering the covenant, remembering the
Yeah,
commandment. So,
yeah.
but it's remembering the
Yeah, and if you're not keeping the commandments, you're not
you're not,
remembering the covenant.
yeah. So they go together.
Yeah. So, and here's another instance where we have that word korban is the devoted. So go ahead, Zach, verse 14.
Everything devoted in Israel shall be thine.
So And the Pharisees really kind of took advantage of this idea of korban.
That's what it is called in the New Testament, and so I forget the chapter, but in the New Testament, the Pharisees claimed to get out of helping their parents, which is part of the major part that's focused on the 10th division of Torah, is to love your father and mother, right? A part of that is to take care of them. But people didn't want that. They wanted their substance. So to get around it, the Pharisees and the Sadducees who run the temples, if you say when you die you'll give everything to the temple, you don't have to help your parents because it's going to Yahweh.
Right.
Actually, it wasn't really going to Yahweh. It was going to their temple fund because Yeshua called them out for it in the New Testament. And
Right.
it was really for a way for the rich people to keep their riches.
Yeah. So that's yeah. So the thing is the word korban is actually a real principle. It means to that which is devoted to Yahweh, that which is set apart to Yahweh. Um, but people took advantage of that idea to try to get out of doing doing what they are required to do by their parents. We are all required to take care of our parents in their old age.
Yeah, one sad thing about the Pharisees, who are the originators of the Orthodox Jewish religion, they were always trying to find out ways to get around keeping Yahweh's Torah rather than just
Yeah. But so far, what you can see is that all of these offerings are given to the priest. The first fruits offering, every offering is the property of the priests from the point that it is offered.
correct.
Okay. Stephen, could you read verses 15 through 19?
Yes. Everything that openeth the womb in all flesh. So it does say matrix, but this is the womb.
That's an old term. That's an old term for uterus.
Yeah, uterus. Now I will just say this, and I won't say any more. That's why the matrix is called the matrix. It's actually off of that idea, but I'll leave it at that. Which they bring unto Yahweh, whether it be of men or beasts, shall be thine. Nevertheless, the firstborn of men shall be surely redeemed. And this is where Yeshua's parents did two turtle doves. And
Yep.
the firstlings of the unclean beast shalt thou redeem. And those that be redeemed for a month old shalt thou redeem according to thine estimation for the money of 5 shekels after the shekel of the sanctuary, which is 20 gerfa. I don't know how to say that.
Gadas. Gadas.
Yeah, that word. Um, now this right here just goes on how there was a price paid. Okay, for
Well,
us
and this is representative of the price paid for us
through the first.
overall through the firstborn.
Yeah. But the firstling of a cow, or the firstling of a sheep, or the firstling of a goat, thou shalt not redeem. They are holy. Thou shalt sprinkle their blood upon the altar, and shalt burn their fat for an offering made by fire, for a sweet savor unto Yahweh. I will just say this: the fat is symbolic of sin, and we are to get rid of it, and that is pleasing unto Yahweh when we burn, aka sanctify ourselves away from sin. Okay.
Yep. And also the blood shall be sprinkled upon the altar.
Yes. And Yeshua is the altar. So
Yes.
and it's
And and I believe we have a great recording about the red heifer sacrifice, which talks about the blood sprinkled upon the altar.
yes, I will add that to the notes. Um, and the flesh of them shall be thine, as the wave breast, as the right shoulder are thine. All heave offerings of the holy things which the children of Israel offer unto Yahweh, have I given thee, and thy sons and thy daughters with thee, by a statute forever. It is a covenant of salt, even.
Oh, wow. Covenant of salt. So with all these offerings, there is salt.
Yes, and it also goes along with Sermon on Torah, which most people call Sermon on the Mount, how we are to be the salt of the earth.
Mm-hmm.
Talking about how we're supposed to behave.
Yep.
And which includes this offering here.
Mm-hmm.
It's part of the holy behavior that he's defined for us.
Mm-hmm.
Which this part is about worshiping Yahweh the way he wants to be worshipped. Anyways. Forever, for Yahweh unto thee and to thy seed with thee.
Okay. So I may have misunderstood this next section here, but it seemed to me like it was a time like first fruits was a time of tithing, just like the other harvest festivals.
Yeah, so it's a time to bring tithing,
Yeah.
because it is a gathering time. So it's a convenient time to do it. Okay,
Right.
or what's
Right.
going.
So, we have that we have this represented in Nehemiah. Now, in Nehemiah's time, they were returning to Torah, and they were trying to reinstate all the laws and rituals all the laws, rituals, and ordinances of the temple, as they were attempting also to rebuild the temple. So that is the backdrop for this here, and I'll read the verses. And to bring the first fruits of our ground, and the first fruits of all fruit of all trees, year by year, unto the house of Yeshua. Also the firstborn of our sons and of our cattle, as it is written in the law. And you could see we just covered that
Yep.
up here. And so they're trying to reinstate that, and that they're going to have to redeem the firstborn of their sons, but not of their cattle, as is written in the law, and the firstlings of our herds and of our flocks, to bring to the house of our Elohim, unto the priests that minister in the house of our Elohim, that we should bring the first fruits of our dough and our offerings. So many first fruits here, so many references to the first fruits here in these verses.
Yeah, and specifically the first fruits of dough is talking about the first fruits offering that we just went over.
Yep.
Of the bread, because what does dough turn into?
Right. Turns into bread.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy, but yes.
I mean, at least if you handle it correctly and don't incinerate it.
Yeah, that's true. You could do the offering at the wrong place on accident, right?
Yeah, right. You could do the offering in the wrong place, but it's purely by accident and incompetence.
You're just because you're not a good right? So.
Okay, then we should bring the first fruits of our dough and our offerings and the fruit of all manner of trees, of wine and of oil unto the priests to the chambers of the house of our Elohim, and the tithes of our ground unto the Levites. The same Levites might have the tithes in all the cities of our tillage.
Okay, can we pause just a little bit? I do want to bring one symbolism out. And the first fruits of all the manner of trees. So I forget where, but in the Torah, it does bring out how the first 3 years of the fruits of the trees are not to be consumed. And in the third year, you are to bring the first fruits unto Yahweh. So the trees are symbolic of people. Those first 3 years goes along with how ages 1 through 8, the Hebrew inclusive, Greek 7 is when the children are not accountable.
Mm-hmm.
After that, because the 3 actually goes with redemption. They're redeemed by the atonement period from those inclusive age there. And then after that, their fruits are then given unto Yahweh. This is going along with how children are not accountable until the age of Hebrew 8, Greek 7, which there is a lot of science out there how at Greek 7, which is what normal world talks about, it becomes the age of reason. They can start determining right from wrong.
Uh-huh.
I find that very significant myself, but anyways.
Yeah. I do think that's a very significant thing, the idea that um, that the age of accountability corresponds with the age of reason.
Yeah, if you understand that the age of 8 is Hebrew age and not Greek age, it fits perfectly.
Right.
So, anyways.
So, and the priest of the son of Aaron shall be with the Levites when the Levites take the tithes. So the Levites are not taking the tithes on supervised.
Correct.
And the Levites shall bring up the
Just
tithe.
to make sure people understand, Aaron is a subset of the Levites. Okay.
Uh-huh.
Because Levites is the full tribe, Aaron is a subset of that tribe.
Mm-hmm. And they are the one the literal sons of Aaron always have the literal they're always they are always the presidents of this priesthood,
Yes. Yeah.
which is why if one finds a literal son of Aaron, that person is automatically, when ordained to the priesthood,
A bishop.
a bishop.
Yeah, because they're the judges. The bishop is the judge of the branch, which goes along with what's going here. They're in charge.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyways.
Okay, so and the Levites shall bring up the tithe of the tithes unto the house of our Elohim, to the chambers, and into the treasure house. Now, what is this treasure house for, Stephen?
So if you go off of Malachi, is so that way they can then give it to the poor later.
Yes.
Now, some of that is to go to the Levites for being paid for their time and taking care of things. It's
Yeah.
not because they're being lazy. It is being a Levite is a full-time job if done correctly. Okay. And because of that being a full-time job, they are to be paid just as bishops are to be paid according to the D&C from Yahweh through Joseph Smith. And
Yes.
it's because it's a full-time job if done correctly.
That is correct. For the children of Israel and the children of Levi shall bring the offering of the corn. Once again, that is a generic grain of the new wine and the oil unto the chambers where are the vessels of the sanctuary and the priests that minister and the porters and the singers, and we will not forsake the house of our Elohim. So, as they're seriously trying to get back into this, they bring out all the things that they need to do to be able that tithe of the tithes is brought to the storehouse to give to the poor, whereas the rest of the tithes remain with the Levites.
Correct. Some of it is for them to pay for their time because it is a full-time job. Now, that is not preaching time. That is actually doing civil
work,
taking care of the people things, not preaching.
Yeah.
They're never paid for their preaching.
Okay. So I'm gonna go ahead and call up there we go. We're gonna go to the scriptures here, New Testament, and we're gonna read from Matthew, the Matthew 28, the resurrection of the resurrection of Yeshua, uh, on first fruits, because this here is the first prophetic significance of first fruits, and that Yeshua was the first fruits of them that slept. And in the end of the Sabbath, as it began to dawn towards the first day of the week, came Mary Magdalene and the other Mary to see the sepulchre. And behold, there was a great earthquake, for the angel of Yahweh, who was Yahweh, for the angel of Yahweh descended from heaven and came and rolled back the stone from the door and sat upon it. His countenance was like lightning, and his raiment white as snow. And for fear of him, the keepers did shake, became as dead men. And the angel answered and said unto the women, Fear not ye, for I know that ye seek Yeshua, which was crucified. He is not here, for he is risen. As he said, come see the place where Yahweh lay.
Okay, so let me just say something real quick. There is the translation issues in verse 1, just so because we could go look at the Greek if we wanted to, but considering this is talking about first fruits, which is on the 16th, the Sabbath is the 15th.
Right.
This is
So it's actually after the end of the Sabbath.
Yeah, so this is actually the way that it should be, and it's been a while since I've reviewed this, but it needs to be the day after the Sabbath, in the dawn, night shift.
Mm-hmm.
It was at the end, which goes along with the 3 days and the 3 nights. Okay, just
Yeah.
something to keep in mind. I do link an article on my inclusive time on this issue that gets into deep details of all the various resurrection accounts in the Gospels, because without correct translations, there are contradictions. So just to keep in mind.
So here's something that I find really cool here in verses 5 and 6. The angel answered and said unto the women, Fear not ye, for I know that ye seek Yeshua, which was crucified. He is not here, for he is risen, as he said. Come, see the place where Yahweh lay.
Right. Now, these verses are, and the way they're translated in English today, for the most part, is why there's a lot of calendar wars, to put it
Yep.
a particular way. Because it is confusing, but it is because there's translation issues. So.
Yeah, but I think it's really interesting that the equation that is drawn between Yeshua and Yahweh here in verses
And,
5 and 6.
and they're saying Yeshua is Yahweh.
Yep. And that's an angel, by the way. That's that's not just your average Joe just going out there saying, "Yeah, Yeshua's Yahweh." This is an angel. This is somebody who is in um, regular communion.
Well, in addition, Uh, how regular we don't know, but he doesn't have the veil of forgetfulness. He
Mhm.
absolutely knows.
Yeah. And go quickly and tell his disciples that he is risen from the dead. And behold, he goeth before you into Galilee. There shall ye see him. Lo, I have told you. They departed quickly from the sepulchre with fear and great joy, and they'd run and bring his disciples word.
Now, I would suggest a better translation there is reverence.
Yeah, I think that's probably a better deal. Let's look at Luke also, because sometimes there's things that he brings forward about this date that are very nice too. And it really helps to resolve the calendar wars issue.
Yeah, so even right here, verse 1, upon the first day of the week, that's different than the Sabbath.
That is, yeah.
The
So,
seventh day of the week. So there's translations going on.
yeah. Now, upon the first day of the week, very early in the morning, they came unto the sepulchre, bringing the spices which they had prepared, and certain others with them.
Okay,
And they
so
found,
just, let me interject a little bit. This is not very early in the morning. This would be more late in the morning, dawn,
yeah,
night watch. Morning and dawn are the same night watch.
yeah,
Different term, and this is another translation issue here. So anyway,
yeah. This is probably where the Greek is trying to get their meaning from the Aramaic, or
yeah,
which is translated
I
from the
don't
Hebrew.
remember all the details. I didn't study up on that for this just before we do this, but I will put a resource page that gets into details. But to make these unify, it's morning and dawn are two different names for the same night watch, which is
Mhm.
needed 3 days and 3 nights.
Yes. And they found the stone rolled away from the sepulchre, and they entered in and found not the body of Yeshua. And it came to pass, as they were much perplexed thereabout, behold, two men stood by them in shining garments. And as they were afraid and bowed down their faces to the earth, they said unto them, why seek ye the living among the dead? He is not here, but is risen. Remember how he spake unto you when he was yet in Galilee, saying, the Son of Man must be delivered into the hands of sinful men, and be crucified, and the third day rise again. And they remembered his words, and returned from the sepulchre, and told all these things unto the 11 and to all the rest. And it says the disciples, the words of these women seemed to them as idle tales. Until he shows up in the upper chamber, and then they really began to stand up and take notice.
Well, yeah, and a lot of that is because that's quite an event, and through the Gospels near the end, he was telling them what was going to happen, but they weren't understanding it. They still didn't. Today, we have the advantage of being told this from primary Sunday school, like from the start of even before we were members of the church and really believing. It's just what we've always known it. So it's easier to accept it now. But back then, they didn't have that figured out. Now, on their side, they had other things figured out that a lot of us today need to refigure out as they had already. So we have our each different issues, and some of it is cultural at the time, right?
Absolutely. And so, yeah, it's well, nobody'd ever resurrected before.
Correct. People have been raised from the dead, but that is a little different. And the the timing of the 3 days and 3 nights is perfect for his body not corrupting, and in addition, showing that he was really dead. Traditions.
Yeah. So my thing is that a lot of people get hung up on the absolute necessity of actually having 72 hours, 3 days and 3 nights in the belly of the earth.
So this is because they're stuck on Greek ideas instead of Hebrew ideas. Specifically, in this case, exclusive time versus inclusive time. And I don't know how much Ben wants to get into it, but if he wants, I do have a
Yeah,
resource.
the inclusive the 3 days and 3 nights is inclusive. The sign of Jonah was given in inclusive time, not exclusive time.
Correct. And for those who aren't familiar with it, it can be a little tricky, but I do have many examples in the Bible, Old Testament, that actually proves this out. So I just gave you a link, Ben, if you wanted to look at it. I don't know how much time you want to spend on it.
Well, let's take a look. Let's see. Yes, that's right. The verse of Scripture of trees is Leviticus 19:23. That's right. You put that in the chat.
Yeah. So I'll pause.
So as you see here on this diagram, the sign of Jonah, 3 days and 3 nights, he's crucified on the 14th. That
The day of.
inclusive on the day of the 14th. The inclusive time of that, the day and the night, is 1 day.
Right. Now, I will say this right here. The guy that did this picture, he did very good research on these translations and stuff, which is I give the link to the article right there. There is one big issue. He believes the full moon is the new moon rather than the dark conjunction. And so some of these pictures will look wrong because he's on the opposite phases of the moon.
Right. So the 15th, so the 15th, so the 14th is going to be the first day, Passover.
Right, right.
15th.
Will be during the day hours. And
Mhm.
later we'll look in a little bit. There's lots of quotes here from the Bible and rabbis stating that if someone is only alive for 1 second of a day, it's counted
It's still a day. It's still counted as that day.
as in it's inclusive. It's the whole thing.
Mhm.
So yeah.
So yeah, so you have the 14th, then on the 15th, that's uh he clearly was dead the entire Sabbath
Correct.
Of the feast of first Sabbath of the Feast of Unleavened Bread. And here on the 16th, he's raised, but he was dead. He was dead for part of that day. So that day and that night is the third day and night.
Yeah, as
This
in
is how
3 days. So the 14th, 15th, and 16th are 3 days, and then we have the 3 nights, the 14th, 15th, and 16th, and the last night watch is either dawn or morning. Those are synonymous.
yeah. So so in that way you have the sign of Jonah fulfilled with him being crucified on Passover, resurrected on first fruits.
Now, I will add this real quick. It without knowing that the day of resurrection is first fruits, it may seem kind of weird. Why did they wait to the evening to go take care of their Lord?
Mm-hmm.
They were doing first fruits. That's why.
Yep.
And so they were doing the commanded Sabbath and the ceremonies associated with that. And then in the evening, when that was over, is when they came as soon as they could to do that. Now, the first part of the evening is a meal. Now, how long the meal lasts, I don't know, because they did do it at the very end, right? Dawn.
Mm-hmm.
Or dawn slash morning night watch. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about how long that will take. But during the day, they were busy doing first fruits
Yep.
things that needed to be done according to Torah that we went over some.
So as you see, according to the bullet points here on the side, Mary and the other women come right here and right here, right at the very bottom of 16.
Yeah. Which would give you the 3 days and 3 nights inclusive.
Yep. So there you have it. The sign of Jonah fulfilled. No, it is not talking about 72 hours in the dirt.
Okay, now, so before you close that, do you want to look at some of the examples from the Old Testament of inclusive time to show it's not just a convenient thing for the death and resurrection? It's, as you can see, it's throughout the scriptures.
Okay, where do you want me to stop you
Okay,
here?
so let's pause.
Okay, so we wanted to pull a few examples from here about how inclusive time is um, actually shown in the scriptures as well as in Hebrew and as well as in Jewish tradition as well. So the clear I'll just read straight from the article here because this is some pretty cool and interesting stuff about how the Jews count time on a very inclusive basis. The clearest biblical demonstration of inclusive counting is in the New Testament. You see Acts chapter 10, verse 30. Basically, a period of 72 hours is reckoned as 4 days ago, not 3.
Correct. So this is going off of how Hebrews and Greeks, which is how most of the world thinks today is Greek, is different.
Yep. And a great but an Old Testament example is in 2 Kings 18:9 through 10. The siege of Samaria lasted from the 4th to the 6th year of Hezekiah, which is equated to the 7th to 9th year of Hoshea, and yet the city is said to have been taken at the end of 3 years.
That's
So
inclusive.
obviously we're going with inclusive count here, right?
Correct.
So in the modern usage, we would say 2 years by straight subtraction. But given the fact that there's parts of 3 years in there, you can see that they chose to say at the end of 3 years, the city was taken.
Now, just a side note, I have seen people try to claim contradiction because they don't understand this principle.
Yeah,
It's not
exactly.
It's just a different way of understanding things. For example, in the Hellenistic Greek world, we will say how many, it's called exclusive time. When a baby is born, we'll say that they're 1 month, 2 month, 3 month. And when they're a year, we'll say they've had a year. Okay.
Yeah,
In the Hebrew thought, they will say they're in their first year.
right.
They won't say the in part, they'll just say one, but I'm using these extra words to kind of help people understand the different way of thinking of it.
Yeah. So it's just a different way of thinking of the same set of numbering, wherein you actually count the number that you're in.
Right. Instead of you count it after you have it full.
Right. So a short time in the morning of the 7th day is counted as the 7th day. Circumcision takes place on the 8th day, even though of the first day only a few minutes after the birth of the child, these being counted as 1 day.
Because it's even though it's just a few minutes, it's counted as a full day.
Yep. And so in a Greek understanding, a child may have only been alive 7 days, but they're still being circumcised because they are in their 8th day.
Correct. Because it's a different way of viewing, either it's in or after, right? Because the Greek is after, the Hebrew is in.
Yes.
Now, I will just give one more example of restoration history. So there are requirements of the the Aaronic priesthood to publicly officiate. You need to be 25 Hebrew, and to officiate in the Melchizedek, you need to be 30 Hebrew. Joseph Smith, 1830, was 24 Greek. Without inclusive time, Yahweh had him break the law. But when you include or count his age as inclusive Hebrew thought, he was the exact right age, 25.
Yes.
And then 5 years later, when the church structure changed, was when he was old enough to publicly officiate in the Melchizedek, he was 29 in the Greek, but he was 30
In the Hebrew.
which is why Yeshua had to be 30 to officiate in the Melchizedek priesthood. So anyway, a little interesting. These little Hebrew nuances actually does help us understand even our own history. So.
Right. It helps us understand the things it can help us understand the things that were actually directed by the hand of Yahweh.
Yeah, instead of seeing contradictions, we'll start seeing the pieces coming together.
Yep. So it's interesting that the one apostle who actually constantly who the only apostle who refers to Yeshua as the first fruits of them that slept is Paul. And I find that interesting because Paul's sole um, witness of Yeshua is as a resurrected man, as that first fruits.
Yeah. Yeah, because he didn't really do anything with them before that.
That's right. And so Paul, Saul, Paul, either one works because he had both names concurrently. It wasn't a name change.
Correct. It is common in various cultures to have the two different names for the different cultures that they interact with.
Right. So Saul Paul actually had that interaction with the first fruits of them that slept. He saw him as the first fruits of them that slept. And so this is why we have Paul referring to him in that light constantly, both in letter and in sermon. You have it in Acts 26:23 that Christ should suffer, and that he should be the first that should rise from the dead and should show light unto the people and to the Gentiles. He should show light unto the people and to the Gentiles. Wait a minute. What's that in Isaiah? It is not, it is a little thing that you should be a light unto Jacob, but I will also give unto you to be a light unto the Gentiles.
Correct. Now, the Jews should have been doing missionary work to the Gentiles, but they weren't. It is actually
They were too busy. They were too busy feeling good about themselves.
that's an interesting way of putting it. Yes. They were, yeah, they were too busy doing other things, feeling. So, anyways,
They were
And
busy
then,
feeling important.
yes.
well, yeah, that actually. Anyway, for Romans 11:16, for if the first fruit be holy,
Hey, Ben,
I can read.
okay, you want to read?
I'd love to read if that's okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. For if the first fruit be holy, the lump is as holy, is also holy. And if the root be holy, so are the branches.
Okay, so here's something really cool because this is two references to the feasts that are combined together. For if the first fruit be holy, Yeshua be holy, the lump, the unleavened lump, is also holy.
which is the rest, it's the congregation.
Yep. And if the root, Yeshua is the root. If the root be holy, so are the branches.
Which is, yes, Yeshua is the root, and the congregation is the branches.
And this is all, and so Romans 11 is a marvelous, marvelous chapter detailing how all of Israel is saved. And we find out that all of Israel isn't exactly what certain racially motivated people's motivated belief systems believe it is. Israel is those who have struggled with God, with man, and have prevailed with God.
Correct. And hence why they even say sons. Sons means followers. It's following that example of Jacob of doing that.
Mm-hmm. But now, okay, can you also read 1 Corinthians 15:20?
Yeah. But now is Yeshua risen from the dead and become the first fruits of them that slept.
And
Yeshua,
this act, this actually gets us into another prophetic bit. It's about the resurrections, about the about the first resurrection at first fruits when the trumpet is sounded. And
Along those lines, on the trump that he's talking about the rapture trump.
mhm.
Which we won't do much, and I'll put a resource you can look into. But
That's a whole different can of worms.
yes, there's a lot to that. But that is when the resurrection of the rapture will happen. Is that first fruits pattern off of when it happened for Yeshua, and is in the party commandments or the high holiday commandments.
And that's why that's why tomorrow, everybody, enjoy yourself. Enjoy that fine wine.
Yes.
Hey, don't tell me what to do.
So, just on the wave offering, okay, just to get into a little symbolism, since I did bring up the rapture here, you're going up like the priest is doing this up high.
Yeah.
He did go up into heaven. These I haven't figured everything out yet, but I have figured out some things, and here's one. This is going up to heaven, just like Yeshua went up to heaven on that day.
And the heave offering.
The people, the believers, will go up into heaven, so they will avoid the wrath, as we talked.
And the heave offering is much. It has a similar symbology.
You want to expound it, Ben?
Well, the heave offering is performed by lifting what is to be heaved, tossing it up, catching it again.
Mm-hmm.
Toss it up, catch it again. Heaving. You're throwing it up. And in fact, when you do the heave offering with the meat, you literally throw it over your shoulder and then bring it back before you held in your, and then bring it back down, held in your hands.
Mm-hmm. Like maybe Yeshua's coming back?
Yes. And those who are going out to meet him are the ones who are going to come back with him.
Yes.
To show him into his kingdom.
Mm-hmm. So these are not just archaic ceremonies, as some people will call them. Their teachings are deep for those who will have ears to hear and eyes to see. And both are important here, as hopefully people can see what Ben and I just brought out. The imagery, the sight is important to see what's going on.
Okay, so Stephen, do you mind reading? I think we've gone through that pretty well. Let's see if do you mind reading 15:22 through 26?
Yeah, I'll read it. For as in Adam all die, even so in the Messiah shall all be made alive. As in, so Adam did sin, which caused that all men shall die, but Yeshua, because of his atonement, all can have eternal life.
That is correct.
But every man in his own order. The Messiah, the first fruits, because he's the very first one. Afterwards, they that are anointed at his coming. I do know I read it different than what's there, but I do know what's under there in the Greek. So it has to do with the anointed, not the Messiah. So I don't know if you want to get into the Greek on that, but anyways.
So the first resurrection.
I actually did it wrong. Let me correct myself, because
this is the anointed.
One is
the first fruit.
The Christ. The latter one is still the
latter one is those who have to be beaten a little bit.
No, that one's still the Messiah. That one's the Messiah. The first one's the anointed. Then cometh the end, when he shall have delivered up to the kingdom of Elohim, even the Father, when he shall have put down rule and all authority and power. Um, yeah, it's just talking about various prophecy things that are coming up, right?
Yep.
He must reign till he hath put all enemies under his feet. So this is showing a requirement for Yeshua to be the Messiah, to put all enemies under his feet, because otherwise,
Yes.
we wouldn't be able to have full trust in him if he couldn't do that.
Yeah, that's right. If he could not fulfill this section here, if he could not put all enemies under his feet, which by the way, the Old Testament tells us only Yahweh can do that.
Correct. And this also gets in lectures on faith, 3 or 4, I forget which.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Anyway.
one of those two.
Okay, so I just did 25. 26. The enemy that shall be destroyed is death. So,
The last enemy.
oh yeah, the last enemy, sorry, that shall be destroyed is death. And so there's 2 deaths, physical death and spiritual death. Everyone that's been born through the family of Adam will be resurrected. There is no choice in that. But there is a choice whether or not you want to see Yahweh again or not, which is overcoming the spiritual death, which is it's a requirement to come under his covering to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And the way that we do that is by following him into the waters of baptism.
Correct. With a sincere heart and a broken heart and sincere spirit. So
Yeah.
but
So the first is so my commentary on this, just to avoid going necessarily into the Greek full all on, the first resurrection conclude this right here, this first section here, Christ the first fruits. That's the first resurrection.
yeah, I do think though that one's the anointed one. But anyways,
Yeah, the first resurrection concludes with the rapture when the righteous are caught up to meet the Son of Man in the air along with the dead in.
okay. So can I do a small correction?
Okay.
The first resurrection will add at the end of mortality because there will be people that will be born and die after the rapture that will still be part of the first resurrection.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Yeah, I get you.
And it's the second resurrection that will start at the end of mortality, after the 1,000 or millennial reign of Yeshua, and that the people who are alive will be in their up to 1,000 years of crushing for the telestial, those who receive the telestial glory and the sons of perditions. Though they are, it's not generally talked about that they're separatists at the same time. I do believe that the telestial will happen before the sons of perditions, just as celestial happens before the terrestrial, and I do believe the terrestrial portion of the first resurrection starts at the rapture. But
And that starts at the rapture. Okay. So that's okay. I'll have to. I'll fix that in this document.
no, that's there. So these are
For right now,
putting pieces together. There's not any scripture that specifically states all of that. Okay, that is me putting pieces together.
So yeah, I'll fix that in this document when I have some time.
Okay.
But First Thessalonians 4:13-18. This is the trump, the rapture trump.
Correct.
The event of the rapture that is spoken of.
Which is on first fruits.
Which is on first fruits after the 2 witnesses have been dead for 3.5 days in the street.
And they're over it, the wicked, anyways.
and then on first fruits, the trump will be sounded, by a servant, and the resurrection will come forward,
Yep.
as well as simply some raisings from the dead. So 1 Thessalonians 4:13 through 18. Andrew, you want to read that?
Of course. But I would not have you to be ignorant, brethren, concerning them which are asleep.
As in, oh, shit. Just real quick, sleeping is an idiom for dead in Hebrew, and you'll even see that in the Book of Mormon. Just FYI.
Mm-hmm.
That ye sorrow not, even as others which have no hope. For if we believe that Yeshua died and rose again, even so them also which sleep in Yeshua will Yahweh Elohim bring with him. For this we say unto you by the word of Yahweh, that we which are alive and remain unto the coming of Yahweh shall not prevent them which are asleep. For Yahweh himself shall descend from heaven with a shout, with the voice of the archangel, with the trump of Elohim, and the dead in Yeshua shall rise first. Then we which are alive and remain shall be caught up together with them in the clouds to meet Yahweh in the air. And so shall we ever be with Yahweh. Wherefore, comfort one another with these words.
These are the first fruits, the anointed. They're caught up. Zach, do you want to read Doctrine and Covenants 88, 94 through 98?
And another angel shall sound his trump, saying, That great church, the mother of abominations, that made all nations drink of the wine of the wrath of her fornication, that persecuteth the saints of Elohim, that shed their blood, she who sitteth upon many waters, upon the islands of the sea. Behold, she is the terrors of the earth. She is bound in bundles. Her hands are made strong, no man can loose them. Therefore she is ready to be burned, and he shall sound his trump both long and loud, and all nations shall hear it. And there shall be silence in heaven for the space of half an hour, and immediately after shall the curtain of heaven be unfolded, as a scroll is unfolded after it is rolled up, and the face of Yahweh shall be unveiled. And the saints that are upon the earth, who are alive, shall be quickened and be caught up to meet him. And they who have slept in their graves shall come forth, for their graves shall be opened. And they also shall be caught up to meet him in the midst of the pillar of heaven. They are Messiahs, the first fruits, they who shall descend with him first, and they who are on the earth and in their graves, or first caught up to meet him. And all this by the voice of the sounding of the trump of the angel of Elohim.
So so it's interesting that Joseph Smith was given a vision of this from Yeshua, just as Paul was given a vision of this from Yeshua. And Joseph Smith and while Paul is a mighty and strong one, Joseph Smith is the messenger.
Correct, but he's not the one that's doing it. It will be people in the Mighty and Strong Ones group that will be doing, and specifically it'll be her. But anyway,
Yeah, who will sound the trumpet.
Yeah.
He's getting good practice. But I think that yeah. So this is the first fruits. And if you want to know more about how you can be a part of
Before
the,
you read your last thing, there is another verse, 2 Nephi 2, 8 and 9, that talks.
okay, let's pull that up real quick. I mean,
So I'm going to pause for a second.
and Matt. All righty. So Stephen mentioned Second Nephi 2, 8, and 9. So if I could have Matt read that for us.
Sure. Wherefore, how great the importance to make these things known unto the inhabitants of the earth, that they may know that there is no flesh that can dwell in the presence of Elohim, save it be through the merits and mercy and grace of the holy Mashiach, who layeth down his life according to the flesh, and taketh it again by the power of the Spirit, that he may bring to pass the resurrection of the dead, being the first that should rise. Wherefore he is the first fruits unto Elohim, inasmuch as he shall make intercession for all the children of men, and they that believe in him shall be saved.
Now I will point out once again very strongly that belief is not a mental assent. Belief is where you change your life in accordance to that which you believe. You repent.
Right. This is another difference between Greek Hellenistic thought and Hebrew thought.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So, there's all kinds of people who are willing to tell you that the moment you accept Yeshua, you have repented. No, you haven't.
You may have the desire to repent, but repenting actually literally means returning to Torah.
Yep. So that you may become his, the first fruits. They are Mashiachs, the first fruits.
Yes, because they'll be the first one. They will be the first ones presented to the Father, or the ones that are really keeping Torah.
You want to belong to Mashiach. To Mashiach.
I know I do.
Yeah.
And I mean, so I want everybody who hears this video. I would that everyone who hears this video would repent and return to Torah and to live in the Spirit.
And the Spirit is the holy behavior.
Yes.
Another one of the definitions of Spirit is behavior.
And it is that which transforms our base material. It is living in the Spirit that transforms our base material into the first fruits.
Correct.
If you want, there's more that can be read about that in Doctrine and Covenants, section 77, among other places. Doctrine and Covenants, section 88, section 84, section 91. Let us walk in the Spirit. Let us be the first fruits. Let us celebrate first fruits. And let us partake of the wine and joy of the wine and joy of the atonement.
Amen.
Yes. There is one more in the Book of Mormon that I'm aware of. If you want to do Jacob 4:11.
Yeah, Jacob 4:11.
Dude,
Sure,
Jacob.
let's make that happen.
Go, Jacob. I love Jacob.
Here we are. I'll go ahead and read that. Wherefore, beloved brethren, and you be reconciled unto him through the atonement of Mashiach, his only begotten Son, that ye may obtain a resurrection, according to the power of the resurrection which is in Mashiach, and be presented as the first fruits of Mashiach unto Elohim. Have faith, Shema.
or faith, as we've gone over. Shema is the old Hebrew way of saying faith.
And obtained a good
Teaching.
and obtained a good hope of glory in him before he manifesteth himself in the flesh. That's what it means. You have obtained a good hope of glory in him. That's what it means to be the first fruits.
Yes.
And we can only do that as we come under his covering, repenting of our sins, follow him into the waters of baptism, follow him past the waters of baptism, follow him in his walk, walking out the walk of faith in the law, that we may be his first fruits at the time of his coming. And it is my humble prayer that as many people as hear the sound of my voice will elect to do so.
I highly encourage that also. If I can add one more thing before we close tonight.
Yep.
So something that's not very well known is that there is a second Passover, which also there is a second unleavened bread, and there is a second first fruits. Now, the reason why this is significant, because the first fruits in the first moon deals with the first resurrection. The second first fruits deals with the second resurrection.
Okay.
So just something to keep in mind. There are passages along these things, but I do believe the symbolism that deals with it is the second resurrection at the end of mortality, which is for those who receive the telestial glory and the sons of perditions who get no glory.
Unless, of course, you count molten lava as glory.
I wouldn't, but anyways.
Fiery sheen.
Yeah. But
So,
that isn't just in support that first fruits does point to resurrections. Okay.
yeah. Yes. Just like you point, these harvest festivals all point to resurrections because the resurrection is the harvest.
Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The resurrection is the harvest. The good fruit comes in the first and the second harvest. The third harvest, well,
They need to be crushed.
Yeah.
yes.
Which is why they're crushed for 1,000 years.
Yeah. So yeah, so that I implore you, take to heart the Lord's days. Seek to know him through his appointed times.
Yes.
Become his people, that it might be well with you. I'll leave that message with you in the name of Yeshua HaMashiach. Amen.
Amen.
Let's drink some wine.